I stepped off the airport shuttle and felt a rush of relief as the familiar skyline of my hometown came into view. At 25, I had already spent years chasing dreams in faraway cities, but there was something comforting about the blocks, lined with maple trees and sleek glass-front offices, that made me feel grounded. My heart raced with anticipation as I imagined telling my dad about my latest achievement, hoping to see pride in his faded leather eyes, or maybe even a surprised smile. Dad was the kind of man who believed hard work was shown in sweat and calluses, rather than awards, so sharing my success had always felt like a delicate balancing act. I paused at the terminal exit, scanning the crowd of travelers hugging and laughing, and wondered if he would even notice the small leather-bound box I had tucked safely under my arm. The ride home took longer than I remembered, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the suburban streets. And every familiar landmark reminded me of childhood milestones: the corner bakery where I had learned to savor the smell of buttered croissants, the park bench where I had shared secrets with best friends, and the old community centre where I had auditioned for every talent show. Each memory felt like a whispered promise of brighter days. My grip on that little gift tightened. When I finally pulled into the driveway, Dad was already standing on the porch, hands shoved deep into the pockets of his faded denim jacket. His posture was both inviting and inscrutable, like a riddle waiting to be solved. He glanced up, raised an eyebrow, and laughed, a short, surprised chuckle that made my spine tingle. His voice cut through the humid evening air. "Look at you, showing up out of the blue." My suitcase rattled beside me, and I braced myself. Dad's laughter faded as I stepped up to him, and he cocked his head, studying my face like I was a puzzle he couldn't fully piece together. He reached out, ruffled my hair the way he used to when I was little, then opened his arms and pulled me into a tight hug. His clothes smelled like fresh pine and motor oil, a scent that reminded me of summers rebuilding my first car with him. I closed my eyes and felt the steady beat of his heart against my cheek, remembering long nights talking about dreams that felt too big for my small bedroom window. When he finally released me, his expression was soft-eyed, like he saw me Anu, not just his daughter, but a young woman ready to carve her own path. My throat tightened as I lifted that leather-bound box, embossed with my company logo in sleek gold letters, and watched his eyes flicker. He swallowed and gave a low whistle. "You actually did it," he murmured. I nodded, heart pounding. The months of late nights designing packaging, negotiating with suppliers, and pitching to investors had led to this moment. But even I hadn't expected him to look so impressed. Then, my gaze drifted to the porch table behind him, and my breath caught. There were half a dozen small packages neatly arranged, each wrapped in crisp white paper and tied with a navy ribbon. A subtle shimmer hinted at something more than ordinary gift wrap. The tags bore my logo in bold, gleaming typeface, and my name glowed beneath it, reminding me of every sleepless night I had poured into building this brand. My vision of being taken seriously by him and this town suddenly felt closer than ever. I reached for the nearest package, lifting it with a mix of excitement and dread. Dad watched me in silence, the glow of the porch light casting warm shadows across his lined face. My fingers trembled as I undid the ribbon, my mind racing with possibilities. Was this his way of celebrating my launch, or did he have a different surprise in mind? The crinkle of paper sounded impossibly loud in the stillness, and my pulse hammered in my ears. Finally, I peeled back the paper to reveal a slender aluminum water bottle engraved with my logo, the lid sealed tight, untouched. It gleamed in the light, simple and elegant. I raised it to my fingers, inspecting the smooth finish and imagining it in the hands of my first customers. It felt like a tangible piece of my ambition. Dad cleared his throat, and I looked up, curious for his reaction. He nodded slowly, eyes softening. "You know, I was skeptical when you told me you were starting a business. I thought you might give up after a month or two. But here you are, turning heads with your design and determination." A grin spread across my face, and warmth bloomed in my chest as I realized that this moment was not just about water bottles, but a bridge between my dreams and his approval. I placed the bottle back on the table and turned to the next package, heart light with possibility. Whatever was inside, I knew it would carry my story forward. As I finally untied another ribbon, Dad leaned in and whispered, "You've always been the kind of woman to leave your mark. Now the whole world will see it." My breath caught at his words, and I realized this evening. I spent the next morning in my makeshift home office, sunlight streaming through the blinds and illuminating stacks of sample bottles lined up like tiny soldiers. My laptop chimed with email notifications every few minutes, each ping a reminder that the world outside my suburban driveway was waking up to my small brand. I sipped from the engraved bottle Dad had gifted me, marveling at how a simple container could carry such weight, proof that my vision had legs beyond my own defeat. Despite my excitement, a knot of anxiety tightened in my chest as I scrolled through messages from manufacturing partners reporting a hiccup, a mislabeled batch destined for the launch event. Memories of last week's celebratory dinner with Dad floated through my mind, his genuine smile igniting a spark of confidence I hadn't felt in months. I paused and let out a shaky breath, reminding myself that setbacks were part of any entrepreneur's journey. Rolling up my sleeves, I drafted a diplomatic email to the production manager, outlining corrections and requesting expedited shipping for the revised units. My fingers hesitated over the keyboard as I realized that maintaining professionalism under pressure was just as important as the creativity I poured into the brand identity. By mid-afternoon, I was en route to a local co-working space where I would pitch to a potential retail partner, an independently owned boutique downtown known for championing emerging designers. The ride into the city felt surreal. I watched familiar landmarks slip by, remembering weekends spent dancing at a nearby jazz cafe and college study sessions at the public library. Now, I was presenting myself not as a student or visitor, but as a business owner with actual inventory and purchase orders in hand. My pulse quickened as I rehearsed my opening line. "I'm the founder of Aurora Designs, and I'm here because I believe your clientele will fall in love with our sustainable, custom-branded water bottles." The boutique storefront was a graceful blend of exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows, and inside, racks of artisanal goods created an atmosphere of curated elegance. My contact, Maria, greeted me with a firm handshake and warm eyes that seemed to size me up and down in milliseconds. As we settled at a reclaimed wood table, I laid out prototypes, each one gleaming under the soft gallery lights. Maria examined them with genuine interest, sliding her fingers along the brushed aluminum surface. I walked her through my journey from late-night design tweaks to securing eco-friendly supplies, emphasizing how my products resonated with customers seeking both style and sustainability. Her questions were sharp but fair: production timelines, minimum order quantities, wholesale pricing, and marketing support. I answered each clearly, leaning on data from my pre-orders and social media engagement metrics. When she asked how I planned to support in-store promotion, I outlined a week and pop-up event complete with branded signage, live customization stations, and an Instagram contest designed to drive foot traffic. Maria nodded thoughtfully, her eyebrows lifting as she tapped a pen against her notebook. Finally, she leaned back and said, "I like your hustle and these designs. Let me talk to my partners, and I'll get back to you by Friday." Relief flooded me, and I thanked her as I packed up, already imagining a row of Aurora bottles lining that boutique shelves. That night, I joined Dad on our porch, the twilight air cool against my skin. He offered me a beer from the mini fridge he kept outside, and I told him about the boutique meeting, stumbling over my words in my eagerness to share every detail. He listened, his gaze steady, and when I finished, he patted my shoulder. "Sounds like you're making moves," he said quietly. I sensed pride behind his words, but also concern perhaps over the financial risks I was taking, all the long hours I was pouring into the business. I assured him I had built a cushion to cover production costs and was tracking every dollar. He nodded slowly, and then, almost as an afterthought, asked, "Just promise me you'll keep some balance." Hung the next morning, I woke to an urgent voicemail from my shipping partner. The corrected batch had cleared customs but sat in a warehouse due to incorrect labeling on the bulk pallet. My heart sank when I realized that without those units, Friday's boutique launch could collapse. I replayed the voicemail, fingers trembling as I dialed the logistics manager. The conversation was tense. They blamed a data entry error in their regional office and warned that freeing up the shipment could take 2 days at best. 2 days would push past Maria's deadline, potentially jeopardizing our agreement. Desperation fueled my creativity. If the physical shipment couldn't arrive in time, maybe I could salvage the partnership digitally. I drafted a plan to create a high-quality digital catalog with 3D product renders and walkthrough videos showcasing the Aurora bottles in lifestyle settings, offering Maria and her team an immersive preview while the physical units were en route. I recorded a conversational video message, walking through production highlights and demonstrating the bottle's features: leak-proof lid, vacuum insulation, custom engraving options. I hit send and immediately felt a mix of dread and hope, knowing that pivoting on short notice would test Maria's faith in my brand. By afternoon, an email notification blinked in my inbox: Aurora Designs Digital Preview. I opened it to find Maria's response. She appreciated my proactive approach and was impressed by the professionalism of the video presentation. She confirmed that she would sign the preliminary agreement contingent on the arrival of the physical samples. Elation bubbled through me as I called Dad, who answered on the first ring. Between cheers, I told him how delivering a digital solution had kept the deal alive. He laughed, pride clear in his voice, and said, "That's ingenuity, kiddo. Never thought I'd see you outsmart a shipping company." His approval was my anchor. And as I watched the evening sky darken, I realized that the real victory wasn't a boutique agreement, but the unbreakable belief Dad and I now shared in what I was building. I woke early on the morning after the launch, my mind still buzzing with the previous day's triumphs and Dad's proud smile. The boutique display had emptied faster than we dared hope. Dozens of Aurora bottles finding new homes and customers already asking when the next restock would arrive. Over coffee on the porch, Dad and I shared a quiet moment, watching early commuters trickle past our driveway. He sipped from my engraved thermos and remarked, "You've given them more than water bottles, you've given them a story." I nodded, warmed by his words, and realized that every late night, every shipment snafu, and every anxious pitch had brought us here. By mid-morning, I was back at my makeshift office, drafting emails to reorders and coordinating with the warehouse team. The boutique had already placed a second order for autumn colors, and social media overflowed with customer photos tagged #Aurora in the wild. My inbox filled with inquiries from other local shops, eager to carry my line. I spent hours balancing production schedules and design tweaks, figuring out whether to introduce a deep forest green or a soft blush pink next, and marveled at how quickly a simple sketch on my laptop had evolved into a community of supporters. That afternoon, Dad surprised me with home-made sandwiches and iced tea, delivered on a weathered tray he'd refurbished himself. We sat together at my desk, surrounded by sample bottles and printed spreadsheets, and he listened as I mapped out the next 3 months: a farmer's market pop-up, a collaboration with a regional yoga studio, and a small crowdfunding campaign for a portable bottle cleaning kit. Every time I rattled off a new idea, his eyes lit up, and he'd ask detailed questions, proof that he was invested not just as my father, but as a partner in this venture. Late in the day, I hopped into the SUV to meet Maria at the boutique for a debrief. The store felt different now, more my own, infused with the energy of a living brand rather than just a temporary display. Maria greeted me with a warm hug and said, "You've outdone yourself. Customers are already asking about gifting these for the holidays." We walked the shop floor together, discussing layout improvements, themed window displays, and a holiday pre-order program. When she mentioned featuring Aurora designs in a local lifestyle magazine, my heart pounded. I could almost see the glossy pages showcasing my logo. Driving home, I thought about how surreal everything felt. Just 3 weeks earlier, we'd been scrambling to fix a shipping label. Now we were planning a multi-store rollout. Pulling into the driveway, I found Dad tinkering under the hood of his old pickup truck. He stood up, wiped his hands on a rag, and beamed. "So," he said, tossing the rag onto the grass, "ready for the weekend markets?" His tone was teasing, but earnest an invitation I gladly accepted. We loaded the SUV with racks of display stands, branded tote bags, and extra stock, mentally preparing for another round of early mornings and long days. At the Saturday market, as we sat up beneath the striped canopy, I felt the familiar flutter of nerves give way to pure exhilaration. Customers approached our booth drawn by the sleek bottles and storyboards illustrating Aurora's mission. Dad. Engage families in conversation, sharing my backstory with infectious enthusiasm, while I handled transactions and demonstrated the customization process. When a mother spoke of buying a bottle to commemorate her daughter's college graduation, I realized how profoundly these products connected people to their personal milestones. By late afternoon, we'd sold out again, exhausted but elated. Dad and I disassembled our booth under a golden sunset, pausing to high-five when the last crate slid into the back of the SUV. On the drive home, we shared a celebratory playlist of our favorite songs, windows rolled down, laughter echoing through the cab. Back at the house, we collapsed onto the porch swing, sipping tea from our Aurora bottles. Dad turned to me and said quietly, "When you first told me you wanted to start a company, I laughed because I didn't think it was realistic. But these gifts, this brand, and this day, they've all proven that your ideas are as real as anything else." I leaned into his shoulder, feeling the weight of everything we'd built together. "I couldn't have done any of this without you," I replied. He squeezed my hand, "And I couldn't be prouder," he whispered. As twilight settled, I looked at the row of empty crates stacked beside us and felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Aurora Designs was no longer just my dream, it was a growing reality rooted in authenticity, community, and the unwavering support of the man who had once doubted me. In the weeks that followed, business continued to flourish. We launched the crowdfunding campaign for the cleaning kit, funded within days, and began negotiations with 2 additional boutiques in neighboring towns. Each success brought fresh challenges, scaling production, hiring part-time help, and refining logistics, but with every obstacle, Dad and I faced it side by side. Our father-daughter bond had transformed into a true partnership. He offered practical wisdom forged in years of hands-on work, and I brought vision and youthful determination. Looking back, the moment I returned home with my logo embossed gifts on the porch was the turning point. It wasn't just the water bottles that carried my brand, it was the shared laughter, the mutual trust, and the collective effort of family and community. Now, as Aurora Designs moves toward regional recognition, I know that every bottle sold carries not only hydration, but the story of how a daughter and her father built something meaningful together. And in that story, we both found something even greater than success, the affirmation that dreaming big, backed by grit, creativity, and love can reshape lives in ways neither of us ever imagined.